Then let me start off. Good evening and a very warm welcome to all of you here to this management conference being organized by Globsyn Business School with AIMS, the Association of Indian Management Schools, on a very pertinent topic, curriculum post-COVID. Now we have a very erudite panel here, and the session will be moderated by Professor Shekhar Chaudhuri, who really needs no introduction. Professor Shekhar Chaudhuri was a director of IIM Calcutta for 2 consecutive terms from November 2002 to April 2013. An alumnus of IIT Kharagpur and IIM Ahmedabad, he spent more than 3 decades in teaching, research, and training. Prior to joining IIM Calcutta, he was a professor of business policy at IIM Ahmedabad. He was also the president of AIMS during 2006 to 2007. With this, we warmly welcome Professor Dr. Shekhar Chaudhuri. Sir, we would request you to take the session forward and introduce the esteemed panel. I would also request the audience to keep yourself on mute and also turn off the video cameras. Welcome, sir. Please take it forward.
Thank you very much, Professor 𝗤𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 for that introduction. First, let me very warmly welcome my fellow panelists and all my many old friends in the audience, I'm sure, and those whom I have not met earlier, but they're teaching in different management schools. So I warmly welcome all of them. Before I begin, I must say that Professor R.C. Bhattacharya called me one day and requested me to moderate this session. So I said, okay, it's a great opportunity because, you don't nowadays for last so many, maybe about 2 months during this lockdown, we have not had any opportunity to go out and meet people. So this is a very good opportunity to meet old friends and also new, people in the management education fraternity. So before I begin, I would like to introduce my fellow panelists, the 5 panelists. We have, the topic that we have today is indeed a very, very crucial one. And we are all in the management schools, we're all thinking about how to respond to this crisis. So I think today, the session that has been organized by AIMS and Globsyn Business School is really apt, and I think a very critical thing, and it's a very big contribution to the management education field. Let me welcome Professor Rajive Kumar, who represents the most important regulatory body for PGDM B-Schools. He is currently Member Secretary AICTE. He has an MTech degree in Computer Technology and Applications from Delhi College of Engineering and a PhD from IIT Delhi. I'm going to be very brief in introducing all my panelists because in the interest of time, keeping time, we have very limited time. We just have about 1 hour, and at the end of 6:30, we'll have to finish. We have with us Dr. Himanshu Rai, who is currently Director of IIM Indore. Prior to taking over the reins at IIM Indore, he was a professor at IIM Lucknow. He did his doctorate from IIM Ahmedabad. Welcome, Himanshu. I'm happy to welcome my longtime friend, Professor Masood Ahmed. He is currently Secretary Association of Health and Hospital Administration and a Professor of Healthcare Management. He is a former president of AIMS. I'm also happy to welcome Dr. Jitendra Mishra. He is currently Dean Strategic Initiatives at WeSchool, Mumbai. Previously, he was Director, Jaipuriya Institute of Management, Indore. Last but not the least, I'm happy to welcome Mr. Rahul Dasgupta, whose organization is co-organizing this webinar. So he doesn't need a welcome from me. So he has to welcome everyone else.
Thank you. Welcome everybody.
So he is also a panelist. So therefore, I take this opportunity to welcome him to this panel. Okay, Mr. Dasgupta is currently Director and Trustee of Globsyn Business School. He is an alumnus of Durham Business School and Wharton Business School. So let me just take a couple of minutes to introduce this topic, as you're all aware, the three fundamental aspects of management education are to impart knowledge, to develop skills, and develop the right attitudes, which will make, these are basically three fundamental things that make a person effective as a manager. So, I mean, we have to keep in mind these three aspects. Now, we have seen the management education field in India has seen many changes. And at some time, we probably thought they were disruptive. For example, the liberalization that began, the advent of liberalization that started in 1991, when the whole industry got liberalized from the license permit Raj. So that was a major change that we saw. Then we have seen the development of ICT. Now, tremendous developments have taken place, and we felt something is wrong. So, putting his hand. What happened? Somebody's putting his. Oh, okay. So we have seen tremendous changes in ICT, which has also had an impact on management education. So we can go on and on about talking about some of these events that have taken place. But with COVID-19, the kind of change that we probably are going to face is really disruptive. We used to talk about disruptive changes earlier, but I think the change that is wrought by this COVID-19 pandemic is going to be revolutionary in nature. So this will probably require a complete paradigm shift in management education. So we will have to keep in mind how we, in this changed scenario, how we will be able to impart the knowledge, what kind of knowledge needs to be imparted. That also is very, very critical. And in what way that knowledge will have to be transmitted to the students. How do we build the skills? The skills earlier, as we see in management education, it's not only the curriculum that is in the classroom teaching, which has helped develop the skills that are required or the attitude that are required to make an effective manager. But there are several activities which we see in most schools or many schools. For example, the student affairs, student activities. There are lots of student activities that help to develop these skills and attitudes. Now, this requires face-to-face meetings. And it is probably, I don't know, we'll have to think about new ways. How do we engage students? How do we facilitate students to engage with themselves? So this will require a lot of thinking and innovation to develop, because classroom education is not going to be enough. So therefore, we'll have to think about new ways of doing this and the right attitudes. What kind of attitudes? Would there be need for any change in the attitudes? And how do we develop those attitudes? I think these would be very, very important. Now, as I mentioned to you earlier, this webinar is being sponsored by AIMS and Globsyn Business School, for short GBS. So it is therefore in the fitness of things that we also request AIMS and GBS to talk a little bit about their activities. So I'll just briefly mention how the whole flow of this seminar. We will have, once we have this brief introduction to AIMS and Globsyn Business School, then we will follow this order. Professor Rajive Kumar, Professor Himanshu Rai, Professor Masood Ahmed, and Professor Jitendra Kumar Mishra, and Mr. Rahul Dasgupta and Dasgupta. In this order, we'll follow. Each of these panelists, I would request to complete your speech or inputs in about 7 to 8 minutes. Okay, and so that will leave us some time for questions and answers at the end. So now I would request Professor Narayana Reddy, Treasurer AIMS, to speak about AIMS and briefly, and I would just, as I mentioned, you'll have about 3 minutes for talking about AIMS. I know it's a very tall order, but then I'll request you to kindly stick to this time.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Shekhar Chaudhuri. On behalf of Association of Indian Management Schools, I welcome all the panelists, particularly Professor Rajive Kumar and our fellow members from AIMS to this very, very, very important 18th webinar on rebooting the management curriculum. And it is a customary to briefly introduce about the Association of Indian Management Schools. Dear colleagues, Association of Indian Management Schools is a 32-year-old, glorious and highly impact-making body, is a network of management institutions offering management courses, and is a non-profit making society. As an independent networking body for professional development of management education in India, AIMS is one of the largest networking bodies of business schools in the world and is the official representative of AIMS in AICTE as well as in other important national and international forums. AIMS, for a period of 32 years, has been actively promoting various dimensions of management education, particularly from the policy advocacy dimension. We have been conducting various research-based activities and create the positive policy environment in promoting management education in the country. The flagship activity of the AIMS is Annual Management Education Convention, wherein we invite the faculty, students, policymakers, and also important international representatives from across the world to participate and deliberate, and we disseminate the information to the various targeted audience. It is, since you know very well, it is only 800 management institutions are the members, and we are facilitating all the members to be active part in various activities of our AIMS. During our management convention, we recognize the best people, the great policy makers, and also the professors and active researchers, and award them under 12 important awards that we extend. That way, now we are also offering the important research grants to the researchers who are actually doing the research. By helping them, we want to bring out some new innovations related to various dimensions of management educations. And with the 800 active members, and we are having a strong executive board, and we also have various chapters and promoting the management education across this country. With these few words, I welcome all the members to the 18th webinar. As you know that AIMS quickly shift its from the regular offload campus-oriented activities to the online activities, and in the quickest possible time, we have completed 18 webinars. Now we are having the 18th one today. In this series, we are very, very active. All our board members and illustrious past presidents all across the country are promoting management education in the country. With these few words, I welcome again all the members for this particular session. Thank you very much, Professor Shekhar Chaudhuri. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Reddy, for keeping to the time. I just, I made a mistake. Each speaker would have just about 6 minutes if you want to have questions. So I said 7 to 8, but speakers would have only 6 minutes. So sorry for that section. Okay. So may I now request Rahul to speak about Globsyn Business School for 3 minutes?
Thank you, sir. And on behalf of Globsyn, I would like to once again welcome all of you today for this exciting session, Rebooting the Business School Curriculum. post-COVID. Quickly about Globsyn, so we probably started about 7-8 years after AIMS. So we're just completing 25 years for the group, and the group was obviously started with a vision of building institution and infrastructure in the state of Bengal. Primarily, Globsyn as an organization is into education, technology, and infrastructure. And we have about 2,000 people who are working for the group across these 3 business verticals. Moving specifically on the education side, we are about 2 decades old. Our business school was started around 2000, 2001. And within the business school, our area of focus and specialization is in the postgraduate education. We have 2 sort of verticals under PG. One is on the full-time programs, where we have several products, essentially 400 MBAs studying with us. And then we have an executive education vertical, which is actually, most of it is online and some of it is also blended. There we have around 30,000 students studying with us, both as a combination of online and offline put together. On the certification side, we also have partnerships with HBS for their online program. We run several other university certification programs as well as our own certification programs, which are all integral part of our full-time curriculum program as well. So I think that's the education background that we have and the group background. Now, with this, I welcome all of you again and looking forward to learning and interacting with all of you today.
Thank you, Rahul. Fantastic. You also finished in 3 minutes. So now we can move on to the most important part, that is the panelists' opinions, their views on what they have on this rebooting the business school curriculum. So may I now request Professor Rajive Kumar, Member Secretary, AICTE, to please speak on this theme for about 6 minutes.
Thank you, Professor Chaudhuri. Thanks for AIMS for inviting me to this prestigious webinar session on rebooting B-School's curriculum post-COVID-19. First of all, from AICTE point of view, from the Government of India point of view, I will share the policies, what policies we have as far as management education is concerned, and what we are doing at AICTE for B schools, particularly in last 3 or 4 years. So there will be 2 parts of my interaction here. So first I will share the policies, what AICTE is doing at for management education and for other education, we can say engineering education and diploma education. So in 2017, AICTE adopted a quality agenda, and there were 10 points in that quality agenda. And the first point was the revision of curriculum. And second, in revision of curriculum, we have to revise curriculum of engineering, management, pharmacy, diploma, and we did this exercise by involving experts from the academia, from the industry, and all stakeholders' views we have taken, and then we finalized the curriculum of management as well as of engineering, engineering UG, engineering PG, diploma, pharmacy, all such type of things that was done as far as curriculum is concerned. And the important part of that curriculum was, if we talk about the engineering courses, there were around 200 to 220 credits in 4 years. And all the times our students were busy and engaged in attending the classes. There were hardly any time for doing the things on their own and practicing them. So we reduced the number of credits to 160. And now in engineering curriculum, there are only 160 credits for 4 years. And reducing credits, that means we are not it is not the motive to reduce the load of the students. We are giving enough space to the students so they can think differently. They can do innovative things. And another important part that is connected to curriculum is the internship. In internship, was made a compulsory and important component of the curriculum, and making internship compulsory is very simple. But how our students will get this internship was the difficult point, and how we can address that issue was a challenge for AICTE. We started contacting our industry bodies. We contacted and approached each and every industrial body in the country. We invited them, we had dialogues with them. Then we created a portal at AICTE where all these industries, they are posting their internship requirement on that portal, and the institutes and the students, those who want internship, they are also registering on this platform, and it is a matchmaking type of portal, and the students are getting internship. Another important aspect, that was the examination reform. If you go to the higher education system, nowhere any initiative was taken in the past in the examination reform. Our industry is saying that the student who is scoring 95% or above marks in the examination is of no use for the industry. So that gives us then then we thought that there is some problem in our examination system. We constituted a committee, we examined the question papers of even the best institute in the country, and on the committee found that most of the part in these question papers, they are of the cramming type, remembrance. Then we came out with a policy, examination reform policy, that is based on the Bloom's taxonomy. And coming out a policy, again, I told earlier that it is a very simple. We created question banks in various disciplines as per the Bloom's taxonomy, and we are training our faculty members for preparing this question papers and examination, evaluation, everything is part of that examination reform policy. Another important initiative that AICTE took in 2017 is teachers training program. Now, teachers training in engineering, and we can say in management also, teachers are entering after completing post-graduation. Today they are completing the post-graduation, and tomorrow they are joining as a faculty in B schools, right? Or in an engineering college. So they may have good knowledge of the subject, but teaching is an art, and it's it requires a formal training also. So we have prepared 8 modules for the teachers training, and it is now mandatory for any teacher who is entering in the technical education system to undergo these 8 modules. And these 8 modules, they are online. They are available on the SWAYAM, and the modules, they have been prepared with the help of NITERS, National Institute of Teachers Training, and their examinations, they are being conducted by National Testing Agency, NTA. And within launching in 15 days, more than 40,000 teachers, they registered for these modules, and they are undergoing to these modules. And very soon, first term of the examination is being, because of the COVID, we have to postpone it. Otherwise, NTA has given the dates for the examinations also. So this was the first part, and this policy has 3 components. One is this 8 modules, and the second one is industrial exposure for 1 month, and the third one is teaching under the mentorship of some senior teacher. After completing all these 3 modules, the teacher is getting a certificate, a certified teacher certificate is given to the candidate. Now there are other initiatives also taken by AICTE, but we will discuss these modules because the time is limited on different forum also, on different meeting also. And the second part of my conversation today is what we are doing for the B schools. Now the B schools, as I told you, that we have prepared a curriculum, and that a curriculum has been prepared by the best experts in B schools and with the help of the industry. And this curriculum is not mandatory. Mandatory means every B school may have its own specialization or some quality, other thing may be there in one or two institutes. So they can change, enough flexibility is there in this curriculum. They can change the curriculum according to the requirement of the institute and the specialization available in the institute. So this is not it is only a model curriculum. And the second thing is, we have prepared, and last year we have granted funds to the B schools for teachers of the B schools, that we call the research promotion scheme, especially for the B school teachers. And I request through this forum that please popularize this scheme of AICTE among the faculty members of the B schools. And I request through this medium that ask teachers to apply at least for the research proposals at AICTE. Now, the another thing, we have come out for the graded autonomy of the B schools. Now we are providing autonomy, all sort of autonomy. But you can on the line of UGC, we have also come out with a notification, and we have also notified some of the institutions as category A, category B institution having all the autonomies. Now we are again we have advertised. So there is, from this forum, I will request to the institutions, please apply for the autonomy. Autonomy is given only to the quality institutions. Accreditation is mandatory for them. So please go for the accreditation and get the autonomy from the AICTE. Another important thing we have done in management education is that we have come out with the regulation of open and distance education in management. And we have invited proposals also from the B schools. Those satisfy these conditions, they can run management programs in distance mode also. Now, AICTE thinks that there is not much difference between open distance education and the online education. So soon we will just redraft all such things and will come out with regulation of online education for management also. We permit distance education, open and distance education in management, travel and tourism, and in MC only. So in engineering courses, we are not permitting this open and distance education, but we permit 20% courses they can do through SWAMs or through MOOCs. That is permitted. Now, AICTE viewpoint is that because this COVID problem has created a vacuum and everybody has to shift on this online mode. And I'm very happy that our institutes and our teachers with no formal training, they shifted to this online mode of education. Now, in coming time, we are now thinking to bring out a regulation on blended education, where some part can be done through online or through ODL mode, and rest of the things can be done. Because what we think, that education of a student is not complete if he has not gone to an institution. If everything can be done from the home, then that is not a education. Education is not only the qualifying or clearing some of the courses. There are many more things which a student learned from the institute. So we don't want to lose that importance of the education, and we hope in time to come we will able to bring a regulation. Very soon we will bring that regulation on blended mode also. So with all these words, I think I have exhausted more than 6 minutes. Next time, when I will get an opportunity, definitely we will discuss more about the policies of AICTE. Thank you very much. Thanks for giving me an opportunity.
Thank you very much, Professor Rajiv Kumar, for giving us an introduction to the activities of AICTE, specifically related to management education. And I'm sure there will be some opportunity later on, hopefully, for some questions on the kinds of things that you're doing for management schools. Okay, may I now request Dr. Himanshu Rai to please speak.
Right. And I'll try to keep it within 5 minutes so that everyone else also gets time to. I'm going to delve deep and very, very quickly into 2 elements of rebooting the school, the business school curriculum. So there are 2 elements to it. One is the immediate need, considering that the business schools and other management institutions have moved online. How can we do it more efficiently? And the other is a more philosophical question, which would possibly try and address, is this enough? And is this what we need? So first thing is kind of a caveat. Please understand that online teaching is not doing classroom teaching in front of a computer. These are two completely different pedagogies. So what you do with a board or what you do in a classroom, you cannot replicate the same thing in front of a computer. You have to understand that you will have to rethink the entire course structure itself to do online teaching. That is number one. Number two, not all the subjects, not all the courses lend themselves to online teaching. So early on, Professor Chaudhuri spoke about knowledge, skills, and attitude being the three elements so far as education is concerned. Now, please understand that when it comes to knowledge, knowledge is something, the component of knowledge is something that can be imparted through online education. Because essentially what you do is lectures, and you can have a Q&A kind of session like the one that we have right now with the chat box open. When it comes to skills, part of the skills can be actually done through video interaction, but a lot of it also has to have a physical element to it. And therefore you will have to use some kind of a blended learning model so far as these two are concerned. And so far as attitude is concerned, since attitude can be actually imbibed in a person more through influence. And when it comes to influence, it is your own action as a teacher, as an administrator, as an educationist that becomes extremely important. There is absolutely no alternative to physical education, which means you have to bring the student into the classroom, you have to bring the student into the campus so that they can be actually looking at what is the institute doing. And by looking at that, they get empowered and they also get encouraged to bring those attitudes into their life. So this is so far as the knowledge, skill, attitude framework is concerned. And therefore, when it comes to blended learning, please ensure that you have put in place, I mean, Rajiv spoke about putting in place certain rules, etc. But please ensure even at an institutional level, you put in some kind of an equivalence between an in-class hour and an online synchronous hour, also between an in-class hour and an online asynchronous hour. And try to use a mix of all three. Give people some material in an asynchronous mode, which they can actually read, and then come to the classroom, and then using this synchronous as well as in-class module, try to impart education. This is the first part which I wanted to talk about. The second, and this is far more important, it is not merely a question of rebooting school, business school curriculum or rebooting management education curriculum. I would go a little farther, although the organizers did not make that a point of topic. My whole point is, do we need to reimagine management education itself? We are talking simply about going online, but I think there's a larger question that needs to be dealt with. What are those courses that we need to actually offer in a business school? I don't think we can continue offering typical functional courses in finance, accounting, operations, marketing, HR, and so on and so forth. We need to look at what are those skills which are required in the post-4th industrial revolution. Because unless we give those skills, which will actually be required 2-3 years from now, we would be actually giving the students something which is not of much use. And I was talking I was a speaker in one of the Dean's Conference of EQUIS, and I'll be speaking on 16th June again in a Dean's Conference in Amba. And this is what we are scratching our heads about. One of the things which has come out is that some of the skills which will become extremely important are negotiation, coordination skills, complex decision-making, sense-making, and big data analytics in the sense of, in terms of sense-making. Now, if you look at each of these skills will draw from your typical management courses, but there needs to be a greater bit of an assimilation as well. Because when we are talking about complex decision-making, for example, let's say Elon Musk tomorrow manages to actually commercially put driverless cars on road. But who's going to answer the ethical question about who should the car kill in times of an emergency? One person versus 5%, the other person versus the driver himself or herself? And these are larger questions. And I think, therefore, the management institutions now have to reframe their mission statements. Our job is not merely to create and disseminate knowledge. It is also to advance knowledge as well as to practice knowledge. Because many a times I've seen Parupadesh Kushal Bhautere. We say a lot of things, but we don't practice them as an institution. And one of the mandates which was given for management education, and Professor Rajiv Kumar will bear me out on that, was that management education was supposed to help the country. It was supposed to participate in nation building. And therefore, what are we doing for the community around us? I think we need to look at management education from the point of view of social impact that it has in the region and in the country that it actually operates in. So for instance, when it comes to India, management institutions should look at creating responsible leaders. We don't want managers anymore. We want responsible leaders who can make inclusive decisions and in an ethical way. And therefore, the entire program itself has to be reimagined. The entire mission statement has to be reimagined. For instance, we have 833 million people who live in rural areas, so far as India is concerned. Does our management education address the problems that those rural people in the rural areas face? Probably not many of the business schools. So for example, we at IIM Indore, what we have done is we have created something called a rural engagement program where all our students compulsorily go to villages. They stay in a village for a week. They look at the problems of the village, quantify them, put them in there, suggest solutions, and then own those solutions. And along with the administration, they implement those solutions even after they have graduated. And therefore, we keep looking at what is the impact that it has created so far as solving the problem is concerned. And I'm not talking merely about the rural areas, but even if we look at the urban areas, the urban areas again have their own problems. So therefore, just to conclude, let's quickly move to the online mode by looking at the 3 elements of knowledge, skill, attitude. But at the same time, let's not stop there and look at the greater philosophical question about our very purpose. Thank you.
Thank you, Himanshu. Okay, so maybe now move to the next person is Professor Masood Ahmed, please.
Yeah, thanks, Shekhar-ji. At the outset, I would like to thank the organizers of this webinar, the Globsyn B-School, headed by my old friend, Professor R.C. Bhattacharya, and AIMS. In fact, I'm happy after knowing the topic of today's webinar, that is rebooting B-School curriculum in post-COVID. And I strongly agree, my fellow panelists, they made their point clearly. But in order to bring the different context of my point, what I'm going to stress. So my point of discussion will be more at macro level, because I don't want to repeat the same thing what my fellow friends, they have already discussed. See, the today's topic, rebooting B-School curriculum post-COVID. It is relevant. It is not because of it's a academic webinar or the AIMS and Globsyn is organizing symbolically. I think it has got the significance not only for India, Indian management education, but also across the globe. I would like to spare only 1 minute on that, the scenario. See, when we talk about the management education across the globe, my fellow panelists and my elders, they know it very well. There are about 12,000 management colleges across the globe, 12,000 B schools across the globe, and they are at about 195 countries. And India is a major player in management education across the globe, because India has got about 33% of the world management education. My fellow friend Rajiv ji and Himanshu ji, they will agree with me, as we have got about 4,000 management colleges, whether conventional MBA or PhD BM, against the 12,000 management colleges across the globe. I think country like India has got the major responsibility to play in management education, whether it is in Indian context or the world context. This is one. And in order to make my point, the today's topic, that is rebooting or redesigning B-School curriculum post-COVID. I take this topic in a technical jargon. It is something like it has got the front end. This is the front end, but it has got the two back end in a technical jargon. Whatever we are going to discuss or whatever areas we are going to identify and make the modification in terms of this rebooting B-School curriculum, maybe MBA or PGDBM, it has got two back-end effect. One is the academic delivery process, the teaching pedagogy. We should remember whatever changes we are going to bring, whether it is the redesign, re-engineering or reboosting, that what will be the change in pedagogy and academic delivery process, whether it is technically feasible across India. I'm talking about 4,000 management colleges. This is one challenge we have. The second challenge we have, that it is the ecosystem, the infrastructure available with the B-School. I recall my senior colleague, Professor M.R. Rao, the former director of IIM Bangalore and former dean of ISB, used to tell me, Masood, that this world-class institution may have the world-class hardware, but do they have the software, the ecosystem, and the academic infrastructure? I think whatever redesigning we are talking, whatever rebooting we are talking about the MBA curriculum, I think these two aspects are very, very important from the promoter's point of view and the deans and directors of the B-School. So I repeat once again, it is the academic delivery process, how we are going to deliver to the student community, and which also includes the pedagogy. And the second one, the academic ecosystem, because I have got my senior colleagues here, Rajive ji and Himanshu ji, that about 4,000 management colleges under the regulator AICTE, 10% of the colleges hardly, they are the PGDB and autonomous colleges. And remaining 90% of the colleges, they are the conventional, traditional MBA colleges. So whatever change we want to bring in post-COVID, so we should be careful whether these tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 institutions, they are able to make the changes. Okay. And then in order to conclude my point, and now I'll be focusing on the reboosting or redesigning the MBA and PGDBM curriculum. I think as my senior colleague, Professor Shekhar Chaudhuri told, that half of my experience, it is with the healthcare management and medical schools, right from AIMS to others. I think we were discussing at AIMS and other institutions, there are few parameters and factors. Basically, we used to discuss at medical colleges and medical schools by medical and healthcare professional, like immune system, immunity, antibodies, pathogens. These are the exclusive terms for medical schools and medical graduate. But what is happening in post-COVID, it has become the buzzword even for the business houses and the B-School. Now, I think when we are talking about the HR function and operations function, when we are talking about redesigning the syllabus and from the industry point of view, I think in the HR recruitment process, now this parameter has emerged, the immune system, the immunity of the individuals. And unfortunately, it is not linked with the development, and it is not linked with the financial status of the individual. This is one. And the second one, in marketing, we used to have the segmentation and the various parameters and basis. But now few of the business houses, they were discussing about the developing the goods and services on the basis of immune system. The immunity of the individual will have to design our goods and services, whether we have the manufacturing organization or the service sector. So I think this thinking process, whatever we have in the corporate sector, the big business houses, whether it is India or across the globe, I think the B schools, they should make a note of that this is immune system, not only for the HR function, but also for the marketing segmentation and designing and redesigning our goods and services in the present scenario. And I can quote last one thing. In 2013, when I was associated with AICTE as a AIB member, the Professor Manthaji, Chairman AICTE, he constituted a 3-member committee in 2013, Professor Sambandam, Professor Mishra, and myself, to redesign the MBA syllabus. I think when we are discussing that time 13 itself, I think, yeah, I'm concluding, there we put more stress on social skills and human skills. I think post-COVID, we at WeSchool, we should focus on social skills and human skills, including some health parameter. Thank you, Professor Shekhar Chaudhuri.
Thank you. So may I now request Professor Jitendra Kumar Mishra to please speak.
Thank you, Professor Chaudhuri. Let me first thank AIMS and Globsyn Business School for creating this wonderful opportunity to interact with the academicians and policymakers at large. It is indeed a very pertinent topic, and it's a pertinent time because perhaps we have got ourselves recollected and we have taken a pause from daily hustle bustle, which can give us a quality thinking on something which is of strategic importance. If you look at curriculum, it is seen as a guarantee of required knowledge, skill, and attitude that a program will ensure to its participant. And in that respect, if I could draw your attention to a very celebrated book of Dr. Shrikant Datar and his colleague from Harvard, 10 years back, 2010 it was published, and its title is Rethinking the MBA, Business Education at Crossroad. That led to a very big debate across the globe, that is management education able to create the desired value? And that question is still pertinent, that question is still relevant, because if you look at management education, the management curriculum, it is questioned. I'm happy to quote Rajive Kumarji pointed out that 90% student scoring 90% in exam are being assessed by industry, they are of not any use. And it is not because of the examination system, because our overall focus of curriculum is knowing part. And this knowing part, till it continues in the same proportion, the examination will not be able to make much difference, because what you teach and how you train, that will be reflected in your graduates. So we need to look at that deeper part, how this curriculum is balancing knowing, doing, and being. The overall shift of management education has to be from knowing to doing part, from what to how. And that is what industry is looking for. Further, if you see the industry, overall industry change, industry is already undergoing fourth revolution, where overall requirements of industry is changing at a very fast pace. We believe that the technological transformation, the digital agility, the digital leadership and agility are going to be the most deciding factor in the success of industry. Have we created any mechanism to ensure that our students can deal with such kind of challenges? That we need to think over. And I think this is the best group to look into these deeper issues. Further, it is being reported in many of the reports from KPMG to McKinsey and all, that what jobs are going to emerge in 2030 or 2040, majority of them are not known to anybody. In such a situation, what kind of preparation we are making to give the students so that they prepare to deal with unforeseen situations? And in this context, the major skills requirements are very simple. We need students to look at the bigger picture. We need to help them develop the ability to bringing the opposite dimensions, the opposite thought process, and try to find a way to see through the problem, to have an integrative thinking skill, to bring in design thinking, to have empathy and find the useful solutions, and kind of. So this is the context where we need to look at when we are talking of rebooting curriculum. And this is perhaps the best time, as I told, that perhaps we are in the best of our state of mind to look into deeper state. We are better settled. We are not into hustle bustle. And if you look in those aspects, so my first thing is that curriculum cannot be vanilla anymore. The nature of industry and the kind of competition that is there, it is demanding for various specific skills, which this vanilla MBA is not going to serve. So you need to have a sectoral focus. This sectoral focus can have multiple dimensions. It may have the dimension of separate sectoral programs, or it may be offered in terms of sectoral focus in terms of specialization domains. Secondly, the jobs are going to change, where students passing out from our programs may not be doing the permanent job that we have been doing. The nature of job is going to change. And it is largely going to be a project-based job. In that, the employer will be looking at the very specific competency. That is, the competency of a given student is matching to the job requirement. So the curriculum has to be mapped with competency. It has to be competency-based curriculum where we can integrate a skill framework. We may go for a certification so that there is absolute clarity in terms of outcome. What your pass out, what value your pass out is carrying is very clear. Third is, we need to bring in better kind of ingredients in terms of the ethical norms. At large, we are talking of people, planet, and profit. So as Dr. Himanshu very aptly brought in, that the kind of managers we are bringing, they are more operational and they are more profit driven, but that is not sustainable. So we need to bring in focus on that sustainability part, that how to balance people, planet, and profit, because we all need to exist to have a successful business. Finally, my submission is that curriculum is owned by faculty. When we are initiating all this, we need to make sure that required capability building is done at the faculty level, and the mindset is changed at the faculty level so that they can drive this change in curriculum and we can arrive at a desired value out of the curriculum. Thank you. I would be happy to take the questions. I believe I kept the time. Is it that I concluded early? I have few more points to bring in.
I think there is some connectivity.
Okay, so Rahul, can take on?
Muted. Okay, so may I request Rahul Dasgupta, please?
Thank you, sir. Thank you all. I think, you know, I'll just...
They are already at 6:30. So you'll have to, I hope we get...
Sir, I put the timer on, don't worry.
Yeah, okay.
So I think, you know, what I'll do is I'll quickly bring about one major point, which I think many of my friends and colleagues have touched upon, and then conclude with that, and then we can go into question and answers. I think, you know, the whole debate about curriculum being relevant, the curriculum being industry focused, jobs to be aligned, moving from a teacher-centric model to a student-centric model, these discussions have been ongoing for many years, and I think they were relevant before. It just post-COVID, things have gotten a little more accelerated because we have a new thing called technology, which is going to soon be integrated, and things are going to go the blended way. So I think the topic or the concern that I wanted to raise and discuss here in this forum is not just rebooting the curriculum, but I think what Himanshu spoke about briefly in the beginning is the focus should be really on the pedagogy part of it more than the curriculum part of it, because I think the curriculum needs to be always relevant for and aligned to the industry. But I think the challenge has been, and I think many B schools have kept it relevant over the years as well. Some have done better than others. But I think where we still haven't seen good quality output from an MBA or a PGDM perspective is the entire learning process of the learner, you know, how effective that has been in order for him to be employable in some case is the challenge. Now, if you look at, and again, I'm going to focus quickly on only the postgraduate ecosystem in our country. If you look at most of the youngsters coming into learning in our country, they're probably 21 plus years old. So they're all adults. And we all understand that adults can't be taught. They have to agree to learn. This whole science of andragogy talks about intent being the #1 priority in the context of a student wanting to learn and doing something about it. So if you're going to move from a teacher-centric model to a learner-centric model, the first question we need to worry about is, what does the learner want? Why is the learner coming to an institution to buy a product, and what is the desired outcome he's wanting out of it? Is he wanting a good job out of it, or does he want a career progression where he wants to get into research, academia, and other things? So first and foremost, it's very important to focus on the learner to understand what he wants out of that. And I guess that is going to lead to the choice of programs he goes into, the place of study he goes into, whether he wants to go to a more skill-based product versus an academic product. So I think the first point I'm trying to make is to understand the learner and the segment that the learner is coming from. The second part, the part 2 of that would be, once the learner and the intent is clear, what he or she wants to get out of it, I guess the next part would be the curriculum relevance. We have spoken about in the past, and AICTE is actually, in one of their later circulars, they spoke about multidisciplinary institutions as one of the ways forward. And I think that's a brilliant idea to have, because you can't just teach management science anymore. You have to be able to teach social sciences, behavioral sciences in addition to management science, because that is what is required in today's world. So the relevance of curriculum, the multidisciplinary aspect of it becomes important. And the next thing, which is equally important, which I started by talking about, is the pedagogy. Now, I think, Jitendra, you mentioned about, Shrikant Datta's knowing, doing, and being, which is very similar to Sir's concept of knowledge, skills, and attitude in some context. Now, if all 3 of these are going to be given equal importance, let's say if it's 100%, so let's say 33%, 33.33% each, the challenge is going to be that how do you look at knowledge and the doing part of it, which is the application and the behavioral, when you have an online versus offline model coming to our entire pedagogy structure. Now, Himanshu, you spoke about knowledge, which can be done predominantly online, which I completely agree with. And I think even there, one can look at experiential approach, wherein, AICTE has spoken about flipped classrooms, right? So students can actually go out. There's so much of content available online today through social media, through various channels, and they can look at not just the faculty teaching them, but they can also start accumulating content through various other sources and come back into an online platform, which is either asynchronous or synchronous, to really enhance the knowledge part of it. And I guess the similar thing has to be looked into from the application and the behavioral part as well. Of course, some of the behavioral elements would require one to have some format of physical interaction or engagement, but definitely the application can be done partly online and partly offline. But the challenge that I think management educations as a whole would have to solve is, when you're looking at an online delivery model, what kind of learning theories or learning methods and techniques would you use to ensure that the retention level or the knowledge level of the student is at par as in-class education? Because in-class education, we have had enough data over the years to look at how do we build in experiential learning physically when a child is in campus. What kind of programs and products can we deliver to ensure that the student in question actually learns better? But when you apply that into an online format and you look at learning theories, how does that work out, right? For example, we know that people learn through visual engagement, or auditory, reading, kinesthetic. These are learning styles that we have all heard about in the past, but how do you apply those when somebody is learning even knowledge online? What kind of engagement models do you create which enhances the retention level of the content that the student is digesting online? And I guess that's going to be the bigger debate or the challenge that academic institutions who are going the blended way need to answer and solve, because without that, you will have a lot of people who go online, who start a program, but they won't complete the program. And I guess the other point I would like to make is the role of faculty in a blended pedagogy is very, very crucial. How do you, I think Himanshu mentioned this in the beginning, that you can't have the same pedagogical approach when you're teaching online versus offline. So what kind of resources should an institution have to ensure that the same faculty is able to effectively teach the knowledge part of it online and the, let's say, behavioral or the doing part of it offline? And that requires a lot of training and development. So I guess those are the areas which are going to be areas of research, areas of collaboration and learning that many, many management institutions would go through in the coming years, so that we are able to succeed out of this blended model of delivery. Otherwise, blended would just be a way to finish a program. But I fear that the retention part, the content part, I don't know how effectively students will have a takeaway from it. So I think that's one of the points I just wanted to mention, and I'll conclude there. And I'm happy to interact and have questions on this. So that's 7 minutes and 42 seconds, sir.
Thank you very much. But I need to know from the host whether how much time do we have? Do we have any time?
I think that continue. Yes, sir, we do.
I would.
Do we have any time?
Yeah.
Sorry, I can't hear you. I can't. Sorry, I think there's some problem. Do we have some time?
We can take one or two questions and then we'll conclude.
1 or 2 questions.
Yeah, we have time.
So, sorry?
We have time. Some time is there.
No, I mean, it was supposed to end at 6:30, so that's why I wanted to know. So up to what time can we go?
Yeah, we can go for next 10-15 minutes.
10-15 minutes we can go. Okay, great.
Okay,
fantastic. Thank you very much.
I will need to leave in 6 minutes.
Assignment now.
So
Sorry, I can't hear you. I think there is some problem.
I have another assignment right now. Still, I am sitting in car. I'm just.
I think so. We take 1 or 2 questions and we conclude.
Okay, we'll just take 1 or 2 questions. I think I am not going to summarize this whole discussion because of lack of time. So I think we have had excellent presentations by the panelists, and very interesting things have been talked about. But in the interest of time, I just cannot go over them right now. But I am going to focus on one thing, and I think which I mentioned in the very beginning, which has been talked about by the panelists. The knowledge, skills, and attitude, this framework, the knowledge seems to be, I mean, relatively the easiest thing. Now, in the new setup, new paradigm that we are looking at, how do we develop the skills and attitude? Because people did not talk about how do we organize. Now, if 180 or 250 students are there in the college, then how do you get them to come? How many more sections would have to be had? How do you teach from morning till night and so on? So I think the most important point to me, it seems now at this stage, because of the lack of time, we can focus on this, the skills and attitude part. One question which I received there are many questions, but I think we'll focus only on one. Is even if we focus on online classes, where can the student get the practical knowledge, understanding of the market? That is one. And second question is, second question is the 3 things that require ethics, equality, and equity. So how do you build these aspects into our program, given the COVID-19 situation, that we have to maintain social distancing, we have to have all these, the gear, the shield, and all those kinds of things. How do we manage to do all these things? These 2 questions. So I would request maybe Professor Jitendra Mishra to talk about the first one, respond on this one. Even if we focus on online classes, how can the student get the practical knowledge? Okay.
Yes, we have seen that digital mode has provided a lot of things to be done easily. Now one can open a YouTube channel and make a wonderful dish. One can fix his AC or a computer by looking at that. So there are ways by which skill can be developed and application can be learned. But yes, it is having its own limitation. the mechanical part, which are the primitive, that can be done. But for understanding the overall ecosystem, for understanding the overall premise of the various applications, one need to interact with the complex situation, which is not possible to my mind over online, in online mode. For that, we will have to appreciate the human interaction and the settings where people can apply their mind and discuss and deliberate.
Yeah, no, but my question was, how do you achieve that? That's the point. How do you achieve that? We recognize the need for it, but how do you do this in this new situation that is developing? That is the point. Would anybody else like to, from the panel, please respond on that?
So I guess I will just put one point across. If you look at experiential learning, obviously not all of it can be done remotely, but there are certain things which can be done remotely. For example, if this is something that we advise our students, when students are participating in events and activities where there is experiential knowledge being shared, whether it is sectorial or otherwise, when they are doing projects where they're able to apply something sitting at home, let's say a solution or an approach, when they're working through that, where they're assimilating multiple content and working through a solution, that's another part of experiential learning. Gamification, there are a lot of people who can do learn a lot of things experiential through games, and and we have seen examples of those being included in many curriculums. The physical aspect of it is just one element of mechanisms of online of experiential learning, and I'm sure that through SIP and life projects, people just have to wait it out for them to do it. But I think there are other mechanisms which can also enhance experiential learning while they're studying and while they're remotely locked in at home. And I would encourage students to do that.
I'm sorry to, as the moderator, I should speak less, but I'm sorry to, focus on this. The kind of skills that you're talking about, they are more technical in nature. They're not managerial, not leadership,
Sure.
So therefore, I was actually, when you are talking about management development, management education, these are the things that are required. We talked about, integrative skills, the thinking, complex decision-making skills,
Sure.
the strategic orientation, understanding, scenarios, build scenarios, etc. Now, some of these are very technical and can be imparted through online or, this kind of gamification also, that also helps.
Sure.
But these skills of coordination, thinking, complex decision making, and all that, how do you, because if you are saying that the physical contact, or at least physical presence is required, then how do you achieve it? Now, the schools have set up huge infrastructure.
Yeah.
Huge infrastructure, 400, 500 students in one batch, or even more. Some schools have even more. How do you do this thing in this new setup? So I think that is the point.
Professor Shekhar-ji.
Yeah.
Yeah, Professor Shekhar-ji, our fellow panelist, Dr. Rajiv Kumar-ji already mentioned, whether it is the MBA and PGDPM program, the regulatory bodies, they have given the composition also. Like, how much percentage we can go for online. As per my limited knowledge, it is by UGC, AICTE and the concerned universities. They have given that that percentage is 20 to 25% maximum we can have the online. So wherever is feasible, the theoretical aspects and all we can cover. The remaining 80 to 75%, that is compulsory for the practical exposure, because the regulatory body in India, they have given the guideline. So what should be the percentage online and offline? This is my point.
Okay. So I think we'll move on to the next question. That is the need for focus on ethics, equality, and equity. So may I request Himanshu, please, to speak on this point.
Okay. So absolutely, I mean, there is this need, which is what I was talking about in the second part of my submission over here. The key question over here is, how do we actually inculcate this? I mean, talking about ethics is one thing, but actually inculcating it as an attitude amongst the students. And I would say we have to move a step ahead and not just talk about ethical leadership, but we have to talk about responsible leadership. And responsible leadership encompasses ethics within itself. So there are 2-3 things that we can do. First is that in every course, there has to be an element of ethical decision making, be it a course in finance, be it a course in operations, be it a course in HR, be it a course in marketing, as to what are the ethical questions that may arise, since predominantly the good business schools follow the case method. So while discussing the case, bring out the ethical elements of that case and discuss as to what could the protagonist have done in this particular case. Are there any ethical issues that need to be discussed? That is one. Two, I think we need to have courses which absolutely address this head on. So for instance, in the previous IIM, I used to teach a course called Justice, Ethics and Morality, which was obviously, it became important because justice was a course which was started by Professor Michael Sandel at Harvard. And I realized that we need to talk about justice, yes, but we also need to talk about ethics and morality for the simple reason that many a times people consider ethics and morality to be one and the same thing. And therefore, I wanted to differentiate between the two. And thus this course called Justice, Ethics and Morality. So that is the second part, that we introduce courses which talk about justice, ethics and morality. And there the students should be made to actually argue and debate on issues that are pertinent in business. For example, if you have a shortcut method to make profits, should you go for that, even though it may be legal? Because many a times people take something which is legal as equal to being ethical. And that is where I think the slippery slope starts. And that is therefore the second part that we need to address. And the third part is, as I said, by and large, universities and business schools across the world have actually created and disseminated knowledge, but they haven't practiced the knowledge. So for example, if you are a business institution and you talk about environment and you yourself have plastic bottles in your campus, if you yourself do not greenify your campus, if all your campus has immense amount of wastages in terms of water, electricity, etc., then clearly you are not inculcating any ethical values, because people predominantly learn, at least at that age, by observing. And therefore, we as business schools, we need to start practicing ethical behavior. And these ethical behaviors have to be reflected in everything that we do. For example, there's an oft pointed finger at the kind of fudging that business schools do when it comes to placement figures, or when it comes to certain other figures with which they go to the rest of the world and say, hey, my business school is among the best. And I think we need to stem the rod right there. So the moment we start practicing ethical behavior, the moment we start talking about it openly, and the moment we provide students a space to come and engage in a dialectic, in a dialogue, to talk about these issues transparently, I think many of these issues will get addressed.
Okay, thank you. I'll request Professor Rajiv Kumar, if he is there.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can have last, a minute or so on this.
Can you repeat, please? Can you repeat?
Yeah, this question, this issue of developing these qualities, ethics, equality, and equity, which seem to be quite important in the post-COVID-19 situation. How can these be dealt with in the new situation? That is the point.
Quality, equity, and access.
Yeah.
These three are the important part
quality,
of the
how can they be developed?
Quality. That definitely it is a major challenge and issue, not for the regulatory bodies, even for the institutions. Like institutions, those who are able to provide institutions which are able to provide good quality education, they are doing they are getting good response, and they are getting good name also. But the quality in the institution is also is always an issue, and that should be addressed not only at the regulatory or the government level, but at the institute and the faculty level also. And equity is definitely a challenge. How we can provide good quality education to all cross-section of the society, although government has many policies, many schemes to provide loans of the to the students, those who cannot afford this education. So all such type of things are there, but still disparities are there. We admit it, and definitely it is an issue which each of us and the government, if they can address at this level, but the access is there. Now almost in all regions, enough amount of seats are available, access to the students is available, but the quality and the equity is definitely a challenge.
Thank you. And finally, I'll request Rahul to make the last point on this. If you would like to, you take any one of these two topics that I had mentioned.
So, sir, I think Professor Himanshu covered exactly what I would have said. Otherwise, that it has to be, these topics have to be taken head on into the pedagogy and the curricula of a business school and practice what you preach. That's how, let's say, when we looked at, I'll give another example, where we wanted to move the technology way in terms of AI, blockchain. What we did first was to move our certification process online to blockchain. And that's how we educated not just the students about the technology, but also we started educating ourselves and our faculties about it. So I think a lot depends on how you practice what you preach. And I totally agree with that.
Okay, thank you. I think we have already, the time that was given to me to 6:30, we have almost taken another half hour. But I think we have had very good presentations, and last 20 minutes or 25 minutes of course, focus was only on two questions, but I think good inputs have come from the panelists. So I'd like to thank once again AIMS and Globsyn Business School for giving me this opportunity to moderate. I have also learned a lot and have really enjoyed interacting with you all. Thank you.